Bonjour, bienvenue. Nous sommes aujourd'hui le mardi 10 août. Je suis ravi de vous retrouver ici en salle de presse et en virtuel sur notre système Interaction pour notre rendez-vous de midi. Nous sommes maintenant dans les profondeurs du mois d'août, donc nous n'avons pas d'annonce particulière à vous faire aujourd'hui. Je voudrais simplement vous rappeler que ce briefing de midi sera suivi d'un briefing technique off the record sur l'Afghanistan qui sera modéré par Nabila. Donc n'ayant pas d'annonce à vous faire, je passe directement à vos questions. Je ne vois pas de... Oui, si, j'ai quelques mains qui sont levées, mais je commence par Lionel. Tu peux enlever ton masque pour poser la question.
On peut se permettre. Bonjour Eric, Lionel Julien Arte. J'ai une question par rapport à l'Afghanistan et par rapport à cette lettre datée du 5 août, signée par 6 ministres en charge des dossiers migration européens qui demandent à la Commission de faire respecter l'accord, la déclaration commune. Donc je voudrais avoir votre avis sur cette... est-ce qu'il y a déjà une position de la Commission sur cette lettre du 5 août et la position globale aussi de la Commission sur la situation en Afghanistan?
Alors, ce sont... Te répondons sur ces deux aspects. Je vais d'abord passer la parole à Adalbert sur la lettre.
Merci beaucoup, Lionel. J'espère que vous m'entendez bien. Concernant la lettre en tant que telle, je ne peux que confirmer à ce stade que nous avons bien reçu une lettre signée donc, par 6 ministres de l'Intérieur sur la situation en Afghanistan et sur les retours, et concernant notamment la suspension temporaire des retours. Nous allons répondre à cette lettre lorsque le moment sera approprié, lorsque la réponse sera prête. Concernant la situation, la question générale des retours en Afghanistan, je peux peut-être rappeler que chaque décision de retour est une décision individuelle et une décision nationale, conformément au droit européen, que nous restons en contact étroit avec les États membres concernant cette question, la question des retours en particulier, et de la situation en Afghanistan. Nous avons bien pris note des approches différentes des États membres concernant cette suspension des retours. Par ailleurs, je peux rappeler que dans le nouveau pacte sur la migration et l'asile, nous avons proposé une série de mesures qui tendent à une européanisation croissante du système de retour, avec une approche de plus en plus consistante et cohérente afin que les retours puissent contribuer aux objectifs généraux de la politique de migration de l'Union européenne. Mais voilà, concernant la lettre en tant que telle, nous allons y répondre lorsque la réponse sera prête.
On va d'abord peut-être passer la parole à Nabila, mais en te rappelant que nous avons un briefing technique sur le sujet par après, et que donc les informations seront données lors de ce briefing technique.
Oui, bonjour Yorgi. Pour revenir à la situation en Afghanistan, je pense que ce que je peux faire, c'est juste te référer au statement qui a été publié le 5 août donc, du représentant Borrell et du commissaire Lenarčič sur la violence et l'escalade de violence qui a lieu en ce moment en Afghanistan. Et comme tu sais, pour nous, le plus important, c'est qu'il faut absolument qu'il y ait une paix durable et une stabilité en Afghanistan. C'est la responsabilité et c'est commune et le but commun de tous ceux qui sont présents dans le cadre des discussions à Doha. Nous sommes pour absolument qu'il y ait absolument que les discussions continuent à Doha, que ce soit intra-Afghan talks, et nous suivons en tant qu'observateurs ces discussions et ces négociations à Doha.
Tu as une question de suivi, Julien. Ah, Lionel, pardon.
Ah, je pensais que c'était Yorgi.
Vas-y. Attends, oui, merci.
Oui, j'ai bien noté qu'il y avait un briefing technique, et c'est très bien de faire ce briefing technique. Mais j'avais une question de suivi, je pense plutôt pour Adalbert, concernant la fameuse note verbale à laquelle auquel se réfèrent les 6 États, note verbale du ministre afghan, qui dit qu'il veut stopper tous les retours en Afghanistan pour une période de 3 mois. Donc je voulais avoir votre avis là-dessus. Cette note verbale date du 8 juillet, je crois. Voilà.
D'accord. Je pense qu'effectivement, c'est pour Adalbert. Vas-y, Adalbert.
Merci beaucoup. Effectivement, c'est une note verbale que nous avons bien reçue. Nous avons bien pris note de la position du gouvernement afghan. Tout ce que je peux dire en réaction de ce podium virtuel est que nous restons en contact avec les autorités afghanes sur cette question, aussi au vu de la situation sécuritaire qui continue à évoluer.
Merci. Y a-t-il d'autres questions sur ce sujet? Yes, please.
Lorne Cook, Associated Press. Yeah, just to follow up, maybe it's more for Adalbert, I don't know. 22 of the EU member countries have had troops in Afghanistan, some of them for 18 years, and they recently left because the United States left and because it's just not safe anymore. And what these countries seem to be saying is that while it's time for us to leave, it's safe enough for Afghans to go back to a potential conflict zone. So just in terms, Adalbert, of principle, could you just remind us of the principle of continuing returns or sending people to an active conflict area, please?
Yeah, Adalbert.
Thank you very much. So the legal framework is that it is up to each member state to make an individual assessment of whether a return is possible in a specific set of circumstances. So that needs to take into account the principles, notably the principle of non-refoulement and other fundamental rights. But it is not something that the EU specifically regulates. That where the EU has an individual decision that the EU takes. This is really something that each member state is doing. On the EU side, one aspect that can be helpful to the member states is that the European Asylum Support Office provides country of origin information, so conducts research about the situation in specific countries and then makes it available to member states' asylum authorities in the context of an asylum application. However, each individual examination of a case remains in the hands of national authorities.
Thank you very much. Any other questions on Afghanistan before the technical briefing? Yes, go ahead. And then I will take questions virtually.
Just to make it clear, people who are working directly for the EU in Kabul, what do you do with that personnel? Do you apply with some member states to take them? You cannot take them yourself, obviously. How does it work?
So this is something which we will touch upon during the technical briefing after the midday. Christian.
Oui, une question assez simple, puisque effectivement Nabila a fait référence à la prise de position de M. Borrell et Lenarchik. M. Borrell et Lenarchik dénoncent les exactions commises par les talibans comme des crimes de guerre. Donc je voudrais savoir si pour la Commission européenne, on considère que l'Afghanistan est un pays sûr et suffisamment sûr alors que les zones de combat s'étendent pour se permettre le luxe de renvoyer des gens qui viennent demander l'asile, de les remettre dans des charters à direction à Kaboul, d'autant que l'ambassade des États-Unis vient de demander à ses ressortissants de quitter le pays au plus vite par les derniers vols commerciaux. Ce qui veut dire que si même les Américains considèrent que le pays n'est même pas sûr, comment est-ce qu'on peut envisager dans les États membres et demander à la Commission de dire que ce pays est sûr? Merci.
Mais Christian, je pense qu'Adalbert a répondu à cette question en disant que c'était la responsabilité des États de déterminer si le pays était sûr ou pas. Mais je lui repasse la parole.
Tout à fait, je ne peux pas ajouter grand-chose à ce que Eric vient d'expliciter encore une fois. Il n'y a pas au niveau européen une liste des pays sûrs, que ce soit pour déterminer les demandes d'asile ou pour les retours. Donc c'est à chaque État membre d'apprécier la situation individuellement. Alors lorsque je dis individuellement, c'est à la fois en termes de pays d'origine ou pays où la personne doit être retournée et à l'égard de la situation individuelle de la personne. Mais la Commission européenne n'a pas une telle liste, il n'a pas non plus forcément les moyens, que ce soit juridiques ou pratiques à ce stade, de déterminer quel pays serait sûr dans quelle situation pour ce qui est des retours.
Christian, tu as une question de suivi.
Oui, en fait, ma question, c'est alors je voudrais comprendre s'il y a une forme d'hypocrisie. Parce que pourquoi les États membres prennent la peine de co-signer à 6 une lettre demandant ça, alors que vous-même, vous dites qu'on n'a pas de compétences pour ce genre de choses-là. Et ma deuxième question, et je l'avais déjà posée il y a plusieurs jours, je voudrais savoir si c'est faisable. Le ministre belge, je ne sais pas si c'est secrétaire d'État ou ministre belge, a demandé d'étudier la possibilité d'étendre aux réfugiés afghans les dispositions du pacte ou de l'accord qu'il y avait avec la Turquie pour les réfugiés de la Syrie. Parce qu'effectivement, c'est une route que les Afghans vont très certainement utiliser, emprunter pour essayer de fuir leur pays. Il faudrait savoir si c'est faisable. Merci.
Ta deuxième question, Christian, si tu permets, nous l'évoquerons pendant le briefing technique. Sur la première question, les États membres ont bien entendu toujours le loisir d'écrire à la Commission européenne. Cela n'implique en rien un quelconque impact sur la répartition des compétences entre l'Union européenne d'une part et les États membres de l'autre. OK. I do not see any further questions on Afghanistan in the room. I have one hand raised on the screen. Jennifer, is there a question on Afghanistan?
Oh, not on Afghanistan, but for Adalbert and Nabila on Belarus, Lithuania.
Okay, I think we will move to that now.
Okay, well, first of all, for Nabila on the external dimension, Nabila, please could you give an update following the High Rep's tweet on the 6th of August? He talked about the agreement with the government of Iraq on the flights. Are you now satisfied that those flights have been stopped, and what's the situation at the border? And then I had a second question for Adalbert on the same topic, but I don't know if you want me to hold off or we'll put the question now.
Perhaps put both questions to us. Peter will answer your first question, and we'll see about your second.
Okay. Well, then the question for Adalbert was on the internal dimension. Can you update us on what you said last week about support for Lithuania? How much money will the Commission be sending to Lithuania? And last week, Adalbert, you said that the Commission doesn't usually fund fences, but in this particular case, will the Commission be funding a fence at the Lithuanian-Belarusian border? Thank you.
Thank you. So, as I said, we have the luxury of having both of our foreign affairs spokespeople here. So I pass the floor to Peter.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Well, we had a series of engagements with Iraqi partners, but also with other partners in the region at various levels. You mentioned the one conversation or the one exchange between the High Representative Borrell and his Iraqi counterpart, and we are pleased to see very constructive attitude by the Iraqi partners and their constructive reaction. One result of this outreach is the decision by the Iraqi side to suspend flights between Baghdad and Minsk. So we are observing the situation. We are quite content that the Iraqi partners are aware how important this issue is for the EU, and we hope that the situation will stabilize when it comes to the flights between Baghdad and Minsk.
Thank you. And on the question of aid to Lithuania, I pass the floor to Adalbert.
Thank you, Eric, and thanks, Jennifer. So when it comes to the amount of support to be provided to Lithuania, there are, as you certainly know, certain procedures that need to take place in order for funding to be allocated, and these procedures are still ongoing right now, in very close cooperation between the Commission and the Lithuanian authorities to be able to determine exactly the amounts that are required and on what exactly they will be spent. So we'll be able to update you as soon as these processes have finished. They are very, very well advanced, obviously, given the urgency of the situation. So this should not take very long. When it comes to the issue of the fence, I think we've been very clear about the fact that the Commission does not finance fences or barriers. We are always very careful that the funding that the EU has at its disposal for border management needs to be used where it has really the highest added value. And this is why, as I was explaining last week, we invest into integrated border management solutions that then link to processes that are swift and effective, that then work in line with the principles of the new Pact on Migration and Asylum. However, when it comes to the issue of fences, our position remains as has been explained.
Thank you very much. Are there other questions on the situation at the border between Belarus and EU countries? Lorne.
Yeah, I'll just follow up quickly, Adalbert, because it's quite surprising the Commissioner spoke quite openly in favour of having a barrier there. So this is quite unusual. I mean, is that a political stance? Is it a personal stance? How should we understand this contradiction? It's very new. I've been covering this for 5 or 6 years now. First time I've heard that.
Adalbert.
Thank you. I don't believe there is a contradiction. The Commissioner expressed herself after visiting the border and after discussing with the Lithuanian authorities the specific situation that they are facing at that particular border, a situation that has also evolved very rapidly. And after discussing with them the infrastructure needs at the border, she expressed the view that in that particular situation, a border could be, a fence at the border is indeed a good idea. That is something that can very well be the case at different stretches of the external border in the EU, depending on the specific situation. However, as I said, this doesn't necessarily mean that it would be up to European funds to finance such a particular piece of infrastructure. As I said, we are very much keen on maximizing the value added of European funds, and therefore our approach to this is different. However, there is no contradiction between the fact that we might not be ready to finance something and at the same time think that in a specific situation it is a good idea to put something like that in place.
Thank you very much. Let's continue on this theme. If there are other questions, I see a certain number of hands raised on our virtual system. Thibaut Reiss.
Hey, my question is about travel restrictions. Do you want me to ask that now or come back later?
No, thanks a lot. We'll come back to that. Could I ask you to only keep your hand raised for the moment if your question relates to Belarus and the situation at the border with EU countries? Jennifer. Jennifer, you had to raise your hand.
Yes. Sorry, I was muted. Thank you. I wanted to follow up on the previous replies. First of all, from Peter, you said we hope that the situation will stabilize. So are you not seeing the situation stabilize at the moment? Could you give us any update on the numbers of people arriving from Belarus into Lithuania? And secondly, to Adalbert, could you maybe spell out what kind of, to quote, integrated border management solutions that you're looking at on the border here? What might the Commission be funding? Thank you. Thanks both.
I think that in terms of the numbers of people coming to the border, this would be a question as well for Adalbert, so I'll pass the floor first to him.
Thank you very much. If you allow me, Jennifer, I'd perhaps rather get back to you in writing with all the numbers to avoid just reading out a long string of figures. The overall figure is over 4,000 people who have arrived at the border since this year, which is a considerable increase compared to the previous numbers of people. When it comes to integrated border management solutions, of course, as I said, this is one of the aspects that we are discussing with the Lithuanian authorities very, very intensively in their specific situation. And in fact, there is currently ongoing a trip by senior officials from DG Home Affairs to Lithuania, which started on Sunday, during which we are specifically going into the detail of different measures that could be put in place. In general terms, I would be also happy to send you some examples of the projects that have been financed using European funds and the different types of means that we co-finance with the member states, which include also, for example, technological means such as IT systems or detection systems, for example, that allow them to link to these procedures that I explained.
Thank you. Jennifer, I see your hand is still raised. Do you have a follow-up? No. Yes? Yes?
Oh, no, I don't have a follow-up.
Okay. Thank you. So I see two hands raised still. I suspect on this issue, at least we're still on this issue. So please only keep your hand raised if it is on this. Jacobo.
Thanks. It's related, meaning that it's Latvia, because I'm reading reports that Latvia is considering to introduce a state of emergency because of the flow of migrants at its border. And I was wondering whether the Latvians have contacted you, whether you're talking about it with them, and in case, what's your opinion about it? Thanks.
Thank you. Indeed. Again, for Adalbert, who's having a busy month, or busy past few weeks, I understand. Adalbert.
Thank you very much. Indeed, it's been quite a busy summer. When it comes to the contacts with Latvia, as well as in fact Poland, which also has a border with Belarus, where there are also people arriving, we are in very close contact with those member states. And in fact, it is something that is structured by something that we call a blueprint network, which is one of the aspects of the new Pact on Migration and Asylum that is already being implemented. It is a device that enables us to keep a level of preparedness and an exchange of information between member states about the situation on external borders and in general when it comes to migration management. So we follow the situation very closely. And of course, if there is a request for support by these member states, it is something that we will be able to consider rapidly.
Okay, thank you very much. Jacobo, you have a follow-up.
Yes, please, Adalbert. I didn't understand whether the Latvians have reached out to you to talk about the possibility of the state of emergency or not. Thanks.
Thank you. I would have to check exactly what information has been received as part of our exchanges, but we do not necessarily need the authorities to reach out to us specifically about a specific step they need to take in the context of the situation, because we have this regular constant channel of exchanges structured by this blueprint network. So I would simply need to check what was said in that context at the last meetings.
Thank you, Adalbert. I think this concludes this chapter of the midday briefing. Are there other questions for us today on foreign affairs, since Nabila is on the podium, Peter connected? Ida. No, Ida, I think yours is on the Disciplinary Chamber of Poland, so we'll come back to that afterwards. Reis, I know your question is on something else. Any other questions on foreign affairs? That is not the case, so we will take other questions related to rule of law and home affairs, and I go to Ida. Go ahead.
Thank you, Eric. I have 3 questions to be exact. I would like to know if the Commission already has a reaction regarding the decision of Poland to quit the disciplinary chamber. Second of all, there is a deadline, the 16th of August. on which the Commission would go to the court. Has anything changed regarding this date? And if there's no reaction, when can we expect a reaction from the Commission? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I give the floor again to Adalbert.
Thank you very much. I'm stepping in for Christian also this week. Look, when it comes to infringement procedures, it isn't something on which we're able to comment in the public as long as the infringement procedures are ongoing. So all I can say is that when it comes to these ordinances issued by the first president of the Supreme Court that you referred to on the 5th of August, it is something that of which we can take note and which we'll carefully analyze. And there is no change to the deadlines that are that have been put in place by the infringement procedure in progress. Indeed, we are expecting a piece of information from the Polish authorities by the 16th of August. And I cannot say very much, or in fact I cannot say anything about further next steps until these steps have been completed.
Indeed, the next date in this process is the deadline of the 16th. Okay, I know that Reis had a question on travel restrictions within the EU, since that would also be Adalbert with his Christian Vegan hat on.
Sure, thanks very much. My question's about the United States and the EU and those travel restrictions. Yesterday, they went in opposite directions on restrictions. The EU opted not to enact more restrictions, even though the US is recording new COVID cases at well over the threshold, while the US added new European countries to its travel advisory lists. I'm wondering, why were restrictions on travel from the US not reimposed? And could you comment on the US heightening its advisory rather than loosening its restrictions when the EU has called for reciprocity? Thanks very much.
Adalbert.
Thank you. I've had an opportunity to discuss the issue of travel restrictions by the US quite extensively over the last week, so I will perhaps not repeat what I have said already about the general position on this. But when it comes to how the issue of reciprocity is taken into account, this is a question for the Council rather than the Commission, because the framework in which this takes place is a Council recommendation which explicitly gives the Council the responsibility to look at the reciprocity issues. So I would rather suggest that you contact the Slovenian presidency or the Secretariat of the Council with this question. And when it comes to advisory given by the United States, I would also suppose that the US authorities are better placed to respond to this. From our perspective, as I've said previously, we have a process in place to discuss with the United States the issue of travel restrictions in general, and we consider that there is a good case for the US to remove its travel restrictions, or at least adapt them, given the improving health situation in the EU overall, and the systems that we have put in place with the EU Digital COVID Certificate to prove vaccination, testing, or remission from COVID on an individual level.
Thank you very much. Any other questions on this issue? No, because I see that the questions from Christian and Valentina are on something else. We will take Valentina's question first on vaccination rates. Go ahead, Valentina.
I was wondering, looking at the vaccination rates across the EU, the rates of Bulgaria and Romania are particularly low, and I was wondering if there are any efforts from the Commission side to boost these vaccination rates and to perhaps help the governments explain to people that vaccination is the best way out of the pandemic? Thank you.
Thank you, Valentina. I will give the floor to Ariana on this first.
Hi, Valentina. Hi, Eric. I hope you can see me and hear me. It's actually a question that I received, a similar one last week, so I won't again go in all details, but just to recall the essentials, we absolutely find crucial to continue following the vaccination rates, how they evolve in member states. We have a clear target of 70% of EU adult population vaccinated, which is needed to build immunity against the virus. We, of course, are working with member states towards this target. And what I can say about the efforts that we have been following with member states is that we have prepared a recommendation on the preparation of the vaccine strategies adopted in October 2020, already drawing the attention to tackling vaccine hesitancy through clear information campaigns. This has become even more relevant considering the hesitancy which has been fueled by misinformation over the last months. The Commission is fully supporting member states with information and material to be used in their information campaigns, drawing, among others, attention to the importance of scientific approach. You know that the scientific approach is at the basis of all our recommendations indeed. Finally, Commissioner Kyriakides continues visiting member states across the EU as part of our ongoing effort and commitment to support member states towards the national vaccination campaigns against COVID-19.
Thank you. Valentina, you have a follow-up question. No? Doesn't seem to be the case. Okay, then I move to, unless there are other questions on vaccines and vaccination and the health situation in general, it's not the case, so I go back to Christian. Christian.
Oui, une question rapide pour Ariana. Je voudrais savoir où on est de la Commission avec l'analyse du plan de relance qui a été présenté par la Pologne. Il y avait un délai qui avait été fixé au 1er août, nous sommes le 10. Je voudrais savoir si une nouvelle prolongation a été demandée et accordée. Et je voudrais savoir si effectivement la décision prise par les autorités polonaises sur la chambre disciplinaire est quelque chose qui a été favorable dans cette analyse. Merci.
Ariana.
Merci Christian, c'est encore une fois une question qu'on a déjà répondu la semaine passée, aussi par mail dans les derniers jours, mais quand même je peux juste confirmer que la Commission poursuit son évaluation du plan polonais pour la reprise et la résilience sur la base des critères annoncés dans le règlement sur la facilité pour la reprise et la résilience, donc les 11 critères de qu'on a parlé plusieurs fois dans la salle de presse. Notre dialogue avec les autorités polonaises sur le processus se poursuit et nous travaillons pour conclure l'évaluation aussi rapidement que possible.
Donc rien de nouveau sous le soleil, Christian, ou plutôt sous les nuages, je dirais. Oui.
Oui, merci beaucoup, Maria Odrescu pour la Libre Belgique. J'ai déjà été en contact avec la Commission hier à ce sujet, mais donc j'ai toujours pas compris est-ce qu'il y a une échéance, une deadline en ce qui concerne le plan de relance polonais, parce qu'il y en a un par exemple pour la Hongrie, je sais qu'on essaye d'aboutir avant fin septembre, donc est-ce qu'on a un repère temporel pour le plan de relance polonais, et sinon pourquoi pas, pourquoi c'est différent? Merci.
Non, il n'y a pas de repère temporel, le travail continue. Je ne pense pas qu'Ariana puisse rajouter quoi que ce soit à ce qu'elle vient de dire. Le travail continue, nous vous informerons lorsqu'il y aura des nouveautés sur cette analyse. Ok, y a-t-il d'autres questions pour nous aujourd'hui? Ça n'est pas le cas, donc je clôture ce rendez-vous de midi et nous allons maintenant passer au briefing technique dans quelques minutes. 13h30, pardon. 13h30, excusez-moi. Merci beaucoup.